We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome into another edition of the NBA Lockdown podcast. I'm Israel Gutierrez. Today with me is Amin Elhassan. Amin, what's going on?
Zing, zing.
Between sports centers, I'm sure. All right, so yesterday, I can't figure out this Clippers-Spurs series, and somebody help me out here. I mean, I nominate you, because you've seen the Spurs play toward the end of the season when they were kind of in their version of desperation mode, where they really wanted to work to get to that as good a seed as possible, and they came up short of the 2 seed. But when they were playing that way, they seemed great. Like they were, I was toward the end of the season before that Pelicans game at the end of the season, ready to call them the favorites ahead of the Warriors. I hesitated, of course, but they looked great. And then you get to the playoffs, and I don't know, I mean, if I just don't have enough faith in Blake Griffin and what he does, but I just didn't think that Chris Paul would be enough. Chris Paul and Blake would be enough to go into San Antonio and win a game 6, even though they just won there. It just didn't seem like they were, it seemed like when I envisioned the Spurs playing at their best in a closeout opportunity at home versus what the best the Clippers have to offer, it was going to be an easy decision for me. And then yesterday it just flipped it on its head for me again for the second time in this series.
Yeah, I go back to the things that I said before the series started. Number one, the idea that, the Spurs don't care where they start. Well, 11 out of the 12 playoff series they've played in, they've had home court advantage. That 12th one was the NBA Finals, when they lost to the Heat in 7. So
11 out of their last 12.
11 out of their last 12 playoff series, they've had the home court advantage in. So this idea that they don't care where they play, garbage. Number two, the Clippers had the best starting lineup in the NBA by net rating. There was not even the mighty Warriors starting lineup was as good as the Clippers starting lineup by net rating. When you want to go by raw plus minus, just the spread, the Clippers starting 5 was the best lineup in the NBA. So it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that the Clippers are deep in this, have a chance to win it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, and it will come down to, 2 very simple concepts. Concept number 1 is, can the Clippers starting 5 win 4 games before they run out of gas?
Right.
Last night they won their 3rd game, and I tell you what, it looked like that if that light ain't on the gas tank, it's about to come on. If you've got one of those things that tells you how many more miles you've got before it runs out, it hits that point where the dash is. When you dip below like 10 miles, it doesn't go all the way down to 1. It just goes into dashes. That's where the Clippers are right now. So they may have enough left, or they may just run out and break down on the side of the road. The other way to look at it, on a micro level, within a game, can the Clippers starting 5 build a lead big enough that their bench can't blow? Last night, they got 15 points from their bench.
Yeah, and 10 of that was from
Jamal Crawford. And
he's the only guy on the bench where you look at and say, okay, that's legit. Everybody
Absolutely.
else, it's just you have no idea what you're going to get.
Absolutely. And by the way, 10 points from Jamal Crawford. 6 of those 10 points came in the 4th quarter. 2 huge shots that he hit, and the 2 free throws at the end after he did the George Jefferson little, strut in the corner. So, again, it turned out all they needed were those 6 points from the bench, to be honest, to win that game. And some nights, that's all you need when the starting lineup is as incredible as they were last night. Can they do it again, though? Can they survive one more time with just the bare minimum from their bench? These are the questions you ask yourself going into Game 7. Do they have enough left to build the lead, and is that lead big enough for the bench to give you the bare minimum and you to squeak by? I think when you ask those questions in that context and watching the facial expression every time there was a timeout or a break, Blake looked drained. Chris Paul was dragging out there. They made huge plays. I think they deserve a ton of credit for the plays that they made in the face of fatigue, especially Chris Paul. 32 straight minutes played. 32 consecutive minutes played.
And one of the things that I've said about the Spurs, if you just watch them, mostly in the regular season, but because in the postseason everybody sort of ramps it up a little bit. But watch them play, and really a lot of what they do great is they just work harder than other people in the half-court defensive sets, whether it be I don't know, Patty Mills or Marco Bellinelli or Danny Green. Like they're fighting you for spots. They're reaching. They're making everything miserable for you. They're working harder. It feels like from possession to possession. And obviously in the playoffs, that's not going to be as big of a differential. But yet, like you said, you've got Chris Paul out there playing 32 straight minutes, having to play at that level. I think it only makes it even more impressive. But I want to ask you about Blake.
But before we move on, I want to contest a little bit. Like people say, rotations shorten in the playoffs, so your bench doesn't matter as much. I beg to differ. Because when you're playing against a team like the Spurs, where they just keep cycling fresh dudes,
right?
It does matter. It absolutely matters. We saw it in the eyes of Chris Paul last night. He looked like he was about to die out there. And again, kudos to him. He made great plays. But do you think it's fair of the Clippers to ask him to have to do that every single game when the guys he's going against have been rested and they're fresh and refreshed and all that? So I think when we say short rotation, the depth doesn't matter in the playoffs. I think that only is applicable when you're playing against someone else who's operating by those same rules.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me listen to this sound. It's kind of funny. It's Greg Popovich sort of dismissing a question from a reporter about this stamina issue.
Speaking of Chris and Blake, are you surprised at the level of stamina they've shown this late into a series where they can still play 40 minutes?
It's the first round. They're pros. They're some of the best athletes in the world in the NBA. Stamina is not a problem.
So there you go, Amin.
Salty.
The pros. No need to compliment them for that.
Sodium levels critical, perhaps? A high sodium chloride, a little bit too elevated for Mr.
He was looking kind of puffy, like he was retaining some water last night. But Blake Griffin, where are we with Blake? Because he's having a phenomenal series, but some people will argue it's against an older Tim Duncan and a not great, front court, whatever. I think this is his kind of. If they win this series, if they lose the series, it's going to get overlooked, and people are going to say he couldn't finish in a couple of games, and that's fine. But if he wins this series, this has to be so far. Oh, does it? Let me ask you that. Does it have to be so far his sort of signature moment? Because he's been absolutely great against, a legendary great team. And, of course, a legend in Tim Duncan, and he's been fantastic.
Right. First of all, I'll answer the question, yes, but I want to backtrack a bit. You can't have it both ways, America. You can't say, oh, yeah, of course he's having a great series because old, tired Tim Duncan. And like 2 days ago, you guys were like, he's incredible. He's ageless. The ageless wonder. They're going to win a championship. And now it's like, oh, of course. He did it against, Mr. Magoo and those guys. You can't have it both ways, America. Well, it's got to be one or the other. But the other thing I'd say is, he's played great, and there have been stats. I know Stats and Info has pulled this stat saying that he hasn't played well in the fourth quarter. Again, I go back to he's exhausted. These guys are tired. They're playing 6 against 11. It's not natural. You can't expect them to be incredible throughout 48 minutes, 7 games in a row against a team that's not operating by those same rules. But again, to answer your original question, yes, this would be a signature moment because I think this is, by far, we all acknowledge, this is the toughest matchup they've ever played. It's tougher than those.
If you look at the way you want to talk about, his minutes and wearing down, he was better in the second half last night. 14 points in the second half, 14 of his 26. He was 6 for 11 from the field in the second half after going 1 for 6 in the first half. And he was getting to the rim, or at least closer to it. His field goal distance in the first half, 15.2 feet. In the second half, 10.6 feet. So clearly he was not going to go out like a punk.
Why got to be all that, man?
No, I'm saying that's what his approach was. I'm going into the second half. I've been 1 for 6 for 4 points. I'm not going to let people – well, not that this was his mindset, but it ends up being this. I'm not going to let people talk about me. I'm going to go out here and dominate this game. So even if we do lose, it's not going to be on me. He ends up with 26 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 blocks, and a steal. And that's fantastic. And it kind of feeds into what Greg Popovich said about his team and not responding. This was him explaining why they lost.
It's not, we didn't lose because of Kawhi Leonard. We lost because, the Clippers were determined, physical, focused, played harder than we did. We were soft with loose balls. We were soft. We'd get a rebound. They'd knock it out of our hands. Hard time getting open. I thought their physicality in that regard was great. And we were just soft, and it hurt. I don't know how we stayed in the game, to be honest with you.
Hey, Izzy.
It reminds me of the movie Life. SOF capital T, you soft. Because they were really, really soft.
Yeah.
You got Kawhi Leonard, 3 of 15, Tony Parker, 4 of 12, Manu Ginobili, 1 of 6. You're not going to really have a lot of great games or a lot of great results if you're the Spurs. Those three putting up those numbers. Your starting lineup, you had 2 guys, Kawhi and Tim Duncan, with 12 points. And if it wasn't for Marco Bellinelli and Boris Diaw, who combined for 40, this would have been ugly. And he said he didn't know how they stayed in the game. Well, they hit 12 of 28 threes versus the Clippers hitting 4 of 18. Otherwise, this wouldn't have been as close as it was.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to point out that Pop said they were soft with loose balls. That's the kind of grade A entertainment you get around here at this podcast.
I mean, if it's not gonna make you laugh, it's at least gonna make you smirk.
There you go. It's highbrow, right? Real highbrow this hour.
All right. So what do we make of the Spurs going into Game 7 then? Because if you were looking for an argument that says that these guys might not have it in them for a championship run again this year, this might be the game that shows it to you. When they're at home, able to clinch, and you get Kawhi going 3 for 15, like I said, Tony and Manu struggling. And frankly, in this series, I'm not sure if Kawhi can be as good or as dominant as he has been at times in a regular season, because there's not really a wing type defense, somebody for him to defend. And if you put him on J.J. Redick, he's running off a million screens. And if you put him on Chris Paul, he's going in the pick and roll. And Chris is just quick enough to make it difficult for him. So I don't think his effectiveness can be as high as it has been for let's say the last half of the regular season. Where do you think the Spurs do from here? I feel like that quote basically was setting up his team, Greg Popovich, saying, okay, he called you soft, now respond in Game 7. But still, I don't know if long term, if they can't close out at home in a Game 6 against a non-deep Clippers team, it's probably not a great sign for them going into the next series if they make it.
Shout out to Kawhi Leonard. He was guarding J.J. Redick off those screens last night, and he was working. I've never seen Redick work that hard.
Well, that would explain why he was 3 for 15, perhaps. Maybe a little fatigue.
He was. I mean, he was. There's a part in the second half there where I was sitting there and I was just fascinated by just that game within the game. These guys playing this cat and mouse game along the baseline and chasing one another, and then where Kawhi tries to cheat, and then Redick will flare, and this kind of this dance was
fun to watch.
It is fun to watch, and you're right. It does take its toll, on Kawhi on the other end. But talking about the Spurs again, I got to go back to this. Comes down to the Clippers. What does that gas tank gauge say? If it's hitting double dashes, if you've got that kind of meter on your car, you know what kind of excitement that's like. I once drove to L.A. and I hit the double dashes, and I was like, can I get to L.A. proper before I actually go to a gas station? It's like that Seinfeld episode, remember?
Did you make it though?
I did make it. No. Yeah, I didn't do the
rush.
Yeah. You get that. Hold your hands and Kramer and the car salesman. But
have a quick picture. Make sure you tweet it.
But that's where the Clippers are right now. They are trying to see how long they can go down the Long Island Expressway before this thing breaks down, and maybe they'll get to the end of the game. But I'm betting no. I'm betting no because I don't know how many more times they can do it and have to battle a bench that not only can't hold it steady, but they readily give it back. I don't believe in that bench enough.
So you think a Game 7 at home, and it's still whether or not the Clippers have enough energy left?
Yes.
Okay.
And I know
I would say
runs
that Game 7 energy, a Game 7 experience, especially at home, kind of gives you that energy. Like, I'm going to go ahead and guess Chris Paul and Blake could play 48 minutes on Sunday. By the way, they'll be going up against Pacquiao Mayweather, which
Not necessarily. Going over this undercard. The undercard. That's what
right. But
wrap it up.
But
we're gonna have
people are at a party. People are at a party and they bought this fight. They're not going to switch the channel to this game during the undercard.
Well, if you
they're going to watch every single minute of that and get their money.
If you go to a good party, they'll wheel in the second TV right there.
They'll
have that Spurs Clippers game on. Remember picture in picture? What happened to that?
I know. I used to love it. And you could swap it.
Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah.
TV manufacturers, get on that.
It went out right with TiVo. No more. Boop, boop.
Oh, TiVo's back.
TiVo's back.
DirecTV signed a deal with TiVo, so now all their new DVR receivers are actually TiVo.
Some cable companies still offer picture-in-picture, too. I am able to watch two things on the same TV.
I love that sound.
Yeah.
That's the sound of TiVo. But, okay, so we still got some picture-in-picture, still got some TiVo. You just got to go find it. I'm not a DirecTV person. But anyway, here was Blake Griffin talking about the Spurs and them having been in this position.
I mean, they're a great team. In every sense of the word. I mean, I don't think you can look at a team over the past maybe 20 years or so that's been better. Duncan, I mean, same thing with him as a player. One of the best players of all time. And they've been in this situation. I was talking to somebody the other day. They went to a Game 7 with Dallas last year and ended up winning the whole thing in the first round. So they've been in this situation. They know not to panic.
That is where I go with this. Like, I just think, put everything on the table there for the Spurs. I think being on the road, and I know this is a narrative that people like to jump on and talk about often, but I feel like they might be better off in this series, in this situation, on the road. Just throw everything behind them, forget the home court, forget what they've blown in this series, and win it like they just did in Game 5 in LA. So my money's on the Spurs on this one. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet Tony Parker. Tony Parker might struggle again, but I wouldn't bet Kawhi Leonard to struggle that badly. And I think they end up going into LA and winning this.
Hey, I gotta break in with this. This has just been brought to my attention via the magic of Twitter. So I guess last night, Casey Jacobson, former NBA player, former Stanford star, Pac-10 Player of the Year, he tweets out, with 5 seconds on shot clock, Blake has to take that shot. Even if he misses, he can't give it to Matt Barnes, hashtag Clippers versus Spurs, LA Clippers versus Spurs. And I guess after the game, Matt Barnes is searching his name. I don't know how these players find out that people tweeted about them.
Right? Does he follow Casey Jacobson?
I don't think so. But his reply was, eat a with your 2-year NBA career, you bum. Exclamation point.
Is he must be, he works for one of those other networks, doesn't he?
I don't, you know what? I know he's done local stuff for the Suns.
I already looked it up. He's a college basketball analyst for Fox Sports 1 and Pac-12 networks, Time Warner Cable, and a handful of Phoenix Suns broadcasts.
Yeah, he's done Phoenix Suns broadcasts.
There you go. And not a fan of Matt Barnes.
Well, his response was, that's low, man. Not trying to pick a fight with you. Just commenting that Blake needs to shoot when open and not pass to anyone.
It's so true, though. Like, that was that was overreaction from Mr. Matt Barnes. It's like if he was sitting at home and some other all-star was passing it to some other non-all-star.
He said the same
5
thing.
seconds left, he'd say, man, you got to shoot that.
Yeah.
And here's Matt Barnes getting overly offended.
Yeah, he'd be saying, man, you can't look. He'd be saying, yeah, you're absolutely right. He'd be saying, LeBron can't swing the ball to Shawn Marion in the corner. You got to shoot that. So,
right.
But no, I love that. I love Matt Barnes, man. It's just entertainment. It's truly the most entertaining thing.
Absolutely. It's right up there with watching Kyle Lowry argue with referees. It's very entertaining. All right, there was, I don't know if we want to call it a game, but there was something else on yesterday. It was final score, Bulls 120, Bucks 66. And it's funny because I was listening to the broadcast and you hear Steve Smith on the call last night. Basically, he said they talked to Jason Kidd, and Jason Kidd said, I just want to take the first punch from the Bulls and then the second punch from the Bulls and then hope that we're within single figures or close enough where we can come back. And I'm saying to myself, well, that's not the right approach. That's not the right approach at home, especially. And they took a punch and they took another punch and they just kept taking punches and they passed out right around the middle of the second quarter. And the Bulls just had their way with that game. I don't even know what to say about this game other than to say the Bulls, are they ready for the Cavs?
Yeah, no, I mean, strategy, sure, until that first punch, though. That first punch put him down 16.
Yeah, you can't take a second punch and still be within single figures.
Oh, my God, man. That second punch put it to 40. It was unbelievable. Because you know what the weirdest part was, Izzy? Most of the time, when you see this happen in elimination games, to young teams, to bad teams, not bad teams, but the lesser team, when they take that, 30-point hit, they lay down. It's like, all right, dude, so this thing's over. Maybe someone's going to, in the flow of the game, might hit a couple of threes. We get a little excited again, and we get back into it. But for all intents and purposes, we're just going to trade baskets from here on out. The Bucks played hard, man. They were down 30, then 40, then 50, and they were playing hard the whole time, and it was like the Bulls woke up like, why are we doing this?
I just noticed they didn't have a single double-figure scorer.
It's the second time since the advent of the shot clock.
Wow.
I mean, there are some damning stats.
I didn't watch many highlights or anything because there wasn't much to watch.
Dude.
I will say this, though. The hit that Giannis gave Mike Dunleavy, that was one of the cheapest shots I've ever seen. That was dangerous, and it was hot-headed. And, frankly, I think deserves a suspension going into next year.
So there are a lot of things that were. But I agree with you. He deserves to get suspended for at least a game or so start the year. But because, it shouldn't matter if he, for instance, his shoulder came out of his socket or not. That was a dangerous play. But here's the funny thing. If that game is a 5-point game, he doesn't do that. That part of that is I'm getting my butt whooped. And I'm frustrated as all heck. Part of that is I'm 19 or 20 years old, and I have very poor command of my emotions.
And let's be honest, part of it is I'm getting my butt whooped by Mike Dunleavy.
No, that's what I was getting. The third part was not that I'm getting my butt whooped by Mike Dunleavy, but we talked about this on Twitter a little bit. Mike Dunleavy is like one of those sneaky kind of dirty cheap shot guys.
A sneaky agitator.
Yeah, he's like John Stockton. John Stockton looked like a choir boy, but all those bigs knew that when Stockton was sending that flex screen in the middle of the paint there, he was punching you and doing all types of stuff down there. And nobody really, the common fan doesn't notice. You really can't see it. It's one of those things that you just know if you talk to players who play, he's always doing dirty things. And there's a reason why later on Michael Carter Williams had his little flare up with, again, Mike Dunleavy. And credit to Mike Dunleavy, he's got the perfect, what did I do face? When he got hit,
so good at
he
that.
just kind of sat there in amazement, what's going on, guys? I can't imagine why anyone would react in that fashion. But, yeah, that's, a lot of that, again, is you're getting your butt whooped. You're young and you're getting your butt whooped. But it's also a learning experience because this is the playoffs. This is what it's about. It's about people doing whatever it takes to get under your skin and get you out of your game. And the Bulls did that because they're a savvy veteran team. And the Bucks, that's something to take with them to next year.
You want to talk about evening out your stats. Derrick Rose with a plus 41 yesterday. Jimmy Butler with a plus 46. I'm pretty sure their plus-minus for the series now looks fantastic. All right, so in the Bulls-Cavs regular season series, the game that the Bulls looked the best was the game that, Kevin Love wasn't playing in. And granted, from what I understood, the Cavs weren't too happy they were playing on that last day before the All-Star break, and they were one of only 2 games. But so maybe that they weren't all in that game, but still, no Kevin Love, and Derrick Rose looked fantastic, and they hammered the Cavs. Any reason to believe that that's going to continue, that version of the Bulls against the Cavs? Because I'm pretty sure that there are other circumstances, whether, like I said, whether it be the unhappiness of playing there or just the lack of preparation without a Kevin Love, and now they've got plenty of time or, a decent amount of time to work and figure that out. What do you think happens in this series?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Regular season and playoffs are 2 very different things, right? That one regular season, I believe that was a game before the All-Star break, right? And that's not just Kevin Love's not playing. That's, guys, can we get on this flight to New York already? There's a little bit of that as well. It's a getaway game. But, the Cavs definitely have their work cut out for them because Kevin Love, is such an amazing spacer. He commands so much defensive attention, and that gives Kyrie Irving. That gives
breaking news. Oh snap! News is broken. Breaking news.
Oh snap! Izzy, you know that music. It means
I do.
It means something has happened in the NBA, and we have an announcement. The winner of Executive of the Year. Care to wager a guess?
I'm going to go with the dude from Golden State.
Wow, man. He must be on Twitter or something. Yes,
Nope.
Bob Myers won Executive of the Year.
Hey, there you go.
And close second, apparently, was David Griffin of the Cleveland Cavaliers. But Bob Myers won Executive of the Year for
Hiring a coach
and not doing a trade.
Right, that's true.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the job.
And it's funny how Griffin finished second right behind him when he did pull off that trade. And look who's in a better position. Yeah, I mean that's one of those you could probably justify giving to a handful of people, but given the season that they had,
right,
whether it was a decision or a non-decision, either way, seemed to do all the right things. And look. Getting rid of Mark Jackson and hiring Steve Kerr, given the direction that team was going under Mark Jackson, wasn't an easy decision. Now, you could argue, personalities didn't mesh, and that's what drove it, but you still have to have the bottom line in mind, and the bottom line is winning and winning at a high level, and they're doing it better than they were before, thanks to what he did.
Absolutely. No, it was a gutsy move, and it paid off. It was probably as well as a move could. I mean, they added 16 wins to a team that won 51 games. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I think, David Griffin definitely did a great job because he put together a team, and it's gutsy to put together a team that star-studded and midway through the season say, this isn't going to work. We need to make some more changes. And to make those changes, to stick by his coach, I think those were all big-time moves for Griff out in Cleveland. But like you said, I can't argue with this. But, Golden State had one of the 10 best regular seasons of all time. They got shut out of Coach of the Year. They got shut out of Defensive Player of the Year. They got shut out of Sixth Man of the Year. There's a chance they may get shut out of MVP at some point. They got to get something. So, no argument here.
Yeah. Really quickly, this point guard battle, Derrick Rose, Kyrie Irving. My point on Kyrie is, I've been really high on him this year. If you really, really, really want to judge him, to me, start now. Start when Kevin Love is out. Start when he's going to have to be a big-time performer in the postseason next to LeBron James. Kind of the same way Dwayne Wade. I mean, remember that Indiana series that Chris Bosh was out? It was bumpy, but they won, Miami did, because LeBron and Dwayne just went nuts. They sort of either took turns or did it on the same game. They carried that team, and then obviously Bosh came back during that Boston series. But without Kevin Love, and he's not going to be out, even more pressure on Kyrie Irving, and you're going up against Derrick Rose, who isn't great consistently, but when he's looked good, has looked great, and Kyrie Irving's not really known for the defense, so he might look at him as a traffic cone. So I think this is going to be it's going to be the defining matchup in this series. I think that one alongside with Jimmy Butler and LeBron James, but I think this one's going to be more enticing. And yeah, I think it's going to be a perfect time to start really, really scrutinizing or judging Kyrie's game and Kyrie's performance.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's my thing. First of all, Derrick Rose just better hope he doesn't catch him on 100 days rest because that might go south for him very quickly. But here's what I don't want for Kyrie Irving. I don't want him to have a good series and for some very good reason because the Cavs aren't full strength, for them to lose that series and it was told you it was garbage. Like this is what I hate. It's like if the Clippers lose the series, there are actually going to be a sizable contingent of people who are going to blame Chris Paul. Is
that what we call confirmation bias?
I mean, I guess you could call it that, confirmation bias. Uh-oh. That's the cape noise right there. It sounds like Superman at 30,000 feet, by the way.
Or it sounds like Superman with gas.
Yeah, that's true.
It does. That's exactly what it sounds like.
The cape is fluttering, and not because he's flying. But I am going to cape for Kyrie on this one, man.
Okay.
I'm going to cape for Chris Paul, too. The result of the series should not justify or prove anyone's beliefs about these people as players. I think their play should do that. And I'm confident that Kyrie's going to have a great series because he hasn't
You're so confident. You're so confident that you're willing to fly through the air passing gas.
Exactly. Well, I didn't have to even fly through the air. I just kind of lifted one cheek and let it go. Is that too much?
I'm glad I'm not in studio.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it's you're absolutely right. It is a fascinating matchup. I think another fascinating matchup is going to be if LeBron plays the 4. Do the Bulls say, we will see you at the 4 and raise you a Jimmy Butler at the 4 as well? Or do they say, that's not how we play basketball in the city of Chicago, and try to beat them down?
Well, to me, it'd depend on who he's guarding. If he's guarding Pau Gasol, you stay big and you go ahead. And because he's guarded Pau Gasol before. He does a great job. I mean, LeBron knows what he's doing in there.
And he's strong. And he's strong as hell, by the way. Let's not forget that.
Exactly. But I would go ahead and take my chances with him versus Pau versus if he's checking Joakim Noah, because then he's just floating. Then he's just floating around the defense, looking for steals, looking for ways to disrupt the offense, and then recovering when it's time to box out. And if you start doing that, you might as well take him out of there, take Joe out of there, spread the floor, and put LeBron on the edge somewhere and get him away from the passing lanes. Yeah. So I would say, depending on who he guards. But I think the Bulls are probably going to have to – that's a good question because they don't really do that much. You go Taj Gibson in there.
They got Mirotic.
Mirotic could be the 4. I mean, they could do that. They could, and that would definitely spread them out and give Derrick Rose plenty of space with which to operate. So I like that idea. But for the most part, I bet you're going to see them go traditional. Like the Cavs are going to have to force them into something different.
It's almost on some level. I think if I'm the Cavs, I want them to stay big. And I think about our experiences in Phoenix. I remember especially earlier. When we would play Miami with Shaq or Houston with Yao, we were licking our chops, like, oh yes, please leave them in there, please. And when they pull them, like, no. And for the traditional conventional way of thinking, it's like, no, wouldn't you be afraid of those guys to kill you inside? It's like, no, because we run up and down 3 or 4 times, and those guys are asking to tap out. Like they can't keep up. They can't be as effective as they want to be. And defensively, we could do enough just to make it hard to get the ball in there, within fronting the post. And then the guy on the ball putting more pressure on that so that entry pass is more difficult. So, if I'm the Cavs, first of all, by the way, I don't know if the Bulls have caught on to this, but that Noah Gasol front court does not play well together, like on a plus-minus basis.
Well, they don't give the ball to Pau enough in those situations. I remember during the Bucks series, John Barry just kept saying, give the ball to Pau, and the times that they did, he drew a double, made the perfect pass, and which led to the pass, and there you go. It was an easy possession, and they just don't seem to do it enough. If he's the lone man in the middle with Mirotic, at the 4 somewhere floating in the corners, I think they'll be more than willing to give Pau the ball to operate. Plus, like I said, it gives Derek more room to operate. I think that's the way to go.
But then here's the irony. You just described small ball. You just described the Bulls abandoning their traditional approach. And that's why, like I said, if I'm the Cavs, I don't want them to do, no, play big. Yeah, you guys are big and strong. We don't go and handle that. Like, you'd rather them delude themselves into that and fall into that trap rather than the opposite, and then come down and match them up and then make it that kind of game.
All right, we're going to move on here. And look, there's a tease written out for me. I'm not reading that thing. We're going to talk about Billy Donovan, and it makes me mad because I'm a Gator. We'll talk about him next.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
I've always been intrigued by the NBA. I've been intrigued by the just 24 hours of basketball.
No.
All right. That was Billy Donovan. That was back in 2007 when he took the Orlando Magic job. I was at that press conference. I ended up writing a column in the Miami Herald saying this wasn't for him. He should stay at Florida. And what do you know? He read it because he stayed in Florida. But that was him then.
Hard.
He's obviously taken the Oklahoma City Thunder job, which, from now on I want Oklahoma City to go 82-0, whatever. But my team, that's my team. Like, you could take every other sports team away from me. The one team that I would choose would be Florida basketball. And now my dude is gone. So you want to go in on him for what?
Oh, man, I'd never heard that quote before, man. He said 24 hours of basketball and literally gave them...
What's wrong with that?
He literally gave them 24 hours of basketball. He was there 24 hours and then he left. Come on, man.
Technically, it was like 6 days.
Oh, man. How did we not torch this guy at the time? Jeez. He skated?
I think... Well, he skated for that because nobody went back and listened to the press conference and said, that's a perfect line. But I think most people, including a lot of Orlando residents, believe it or not, because there are a lot of Gators fans there. There are probably more Gators fans than there are actual Magic fans in Orlando. They all said, thank God he's going back to school. Orlando can get somebody else. That's why they weren't going in on him then. But so we got Kevin Durant saying he did his homework. He talked to Chandler Parsons and Mike Miller and maybe other people. Durant said, he's on board. He's heard nothing but good things. He's ready to go with Billy. Here's what a lot of people ask me, is that, and they're asking me, okay, you have faith in Billy Donovan. What is he good at? And especially when it comes to the NBA, what is he good at? To me, I think he's got a great demeanor for a coach because he's very much your friend, but he's still very much your coach. Like it's strange how that works. And maybe it just works in college that way. Maybe it's not going to translate the same exact way in the NBA, but he is understanding. He's very good with the kids, at school. Gets along with them famously. Really, really, really convinces the team first dynamic. Didn't really have to work that hard to do that with Joe Kim and Al. Those guys were just natural, team first type of players, and they had high basketball IQs, and he had a perfect balanced lineup those 2 years. And so, people could argue that this table was set for him. But this is a guy who came in right off the bat, recruited big, went to the Sweet 16 his second year, went to the Final Four the next year. So he's capable. What he's great at, I think, is communication. I think relationships. I do think he's become a quality X's and O's defensive guy. I think he's probably still needs some work on the offense in the NBA, but he has, a lot of people say, what does he run, that weave motion stuff? No, this guy just runs multiple pick and rolls. Right. It's pick and roll after pick and roll after on-ball pick and roll. And so, and he's very, very comfortable with a lot of three-point shooting. He's he understands that. He was a three-point shooter. And so his game, his knowledge of the NBA is there. He's been thinking about it for years, clearly, going back to that Orlando deal. And part of the deal back then was that, we'll let you go, but you can't take another NBA job for 5 years.
Right.
Well, then he's been doing nothing but salivating and studying for 5 years over the NBA. So I think he's going to be really, really good. And no other college coach has ever come into such a golden situation like this. So I don't see him screwing this up.
Man, here's the thing, man. So you said Durant consulted with the former players.
Yep.
This is my feeling. Every time I talk to players who have played for great coaches, I'm talking about every great college coach you can think of. It always reminds me of the Chappelle Show skit when he's acting like he's testifying on behalf of Michael Jackson.
Yes,
and he says, no, man, that guy made Thriller. He's incredible. What are you talking about? I don't believe any of those allegations. He made Thriller. And I said, so you'd let him babysit your children? Oh, hell no. That's exactly how NBA players are. It's like, what do you think of Coach Izzy? Oh, Coach Izzy was like my dad, man. This guy was so incredible. He helped me understand the game and grew up and da-da-da-da. So would you like to play for him down there? No way! Oh, get him out of here! I'm telling you, they're all like, and I don't want to name names because then it'll illuminate which players I'm talking about. But who's who of the greatest coaches in college history? Past, present, past and present.
Okay. But that doesn't necessarily mean it applies for every coach.
No, it doesn't.
I know these guys. I know, again, I've known Udonis Haslem since he was a freshman, Mike Miller since he was a freshman. Talked to Chandler when he was in college too, like Chandler Parsons. I think there's a genuine like for him, not only as a person, but also as a coach. Like I think they would be willing to play for him. Again, I know Mike Miller's wouldn't be opposed to it.
I'm just saying that. I think it's different because the whole thing is, especially for an NBA player, that's what made Brad Stevens different, right? Like he didn't have NBA players, and he still had a demeanor of an NBA coach in the sense that I'm not going to be a dictator. I am not going to be kind of the overlord. I will communicate with respect and quiet, whatever. But for most guys who've coached NBA talent in college, remember, you're coaching them as 18, 19-year-old kids who they've gone on and they've done things and they've lived and they've made a ton of money and they've grown up and they've had kids.
So why has Brad Stevens been successful?
Because I think he had the NBA demeanor to begin with. I don't think Billy has an NBA demeanor.
You don't think Billy has that?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, I will say this about Billy's demeanor. All right, when I was a sophomore there when he got there, and working for the student paper my junior year, I covered them. And his first year, maybe his first even couple years, I thought he was trying to be Rick Pitino. Like I thought he was a little bit too defensive, a little bit of an attitude. Didn't trust anybody. It seemed like, and I've seen this guy change over the last 19 years. He's become his own person.
Yeah.
He's become his own coach. He's adapted so well. He's entirely different than you would have thought he was. If you would have met him 19 years ago and met him today, entirely different person. I think it's a great setting for him too. When you go from Gainesville to Oklahoma City, it's not crazy media. It's not big time city and not big time. There is big
not
time
like Orlando
pressure.
At all.
Hashtag hate hard.
There's big time pressure, but you're not going to walk outside and see it on your front lawn. You're not going to open the newspaper and people are going to be roasting you right off the bat. So I think he's going to do really well. And I think he's also not opposed to hiring a quality, experienced staff. He's not going to pretend he knows it all. I think he'll do well. And again, it's going to be difficult to not do well.
Oh, yeah.
You've got those two megastars as motivated as they're going to be.
No, this team isn't going to flame out. Let's be clear here. This team is a 55+ win team. If I were coaching, and I'm not a good coach at all, but again, when the fact that he uses a lot of pick and roll and ball screen and all that, to me, I hear that. Some people hear that and say, "Oh, that's so great. He's running a pro offense, so to speak." And to me, I hear that and I think to myself, Scott Brooks ran around a pick and roll as well too. It's not, to me, that's not the part. The part is what happens to everybody else who is not involved in the pick and roll.
He runs action off the ball. I mean, it's not overly simple, but it is. It is college basketball where they have a million chances because it's a 35-second shot clock, and they're really going to wait until they get the perfect shot because the defense got lazy or you just ran your stuff particularly well. But no, there is an adjustment. And there's going to be one, absolutely.
And that's the main takeaway. The main takeaway is, look, anyone who's trying to predict how it's going to be, we can't. It's so different. It's literally so different. We don't know. I mean, he may have a completely different idea of what he wants to run, like things that he wished he could run. But I wish I had the shooters to run this. I wish I had a dynamic penetrator to run this. And now he's got pretty much all of those things. He may run something completely different. So we'll have to wait and see.
And the one thing that he does really, really well is, again, he takes ego out of it. He convinces you to take your ego out of it. That's going to be quite difficult. Again, because
that's different. It's different when you're dealing with
totally
grown men.
Yeah. It's exactly what I'm saying, especially grown men who have been established and, who have won an MVP or who have won an All-Star game MVP.
Yeah.
It's great that Mike Miller can come out of school and not have been didn't have to be a 20-point-a-game scorer in order to get drafted 5th overall. And, he bought into the team concept. But, good luck convincing Russell Westbrook that it's best if he's only scoring 15 with 8 dimes and standing in the corner a lot more to get everybody else involved. Like, that's not going to work out for him.
Because you know what, Izzy, this is the truth about NBA players. When you ask them to sacrifice, I think sacrifice in the name of winning, I think many of them, I think it's underrated how many of them will agree to that. But the minute it doesn't work, heaven help you. Like it's like okay, we're gonna win. If we go out and we win, 4 out of our next 10 games. Well, that didn't work. I'm going back to doing what I do. Like that's how NBA players are. They'll give it a chance up to a point, and that's why, by the way, when you get these kind of coaches, college coaches, you usually see them with young teams because they've got a better chance of getting those guys to buy in than again grown men. But again, I think Oklahoma City, they've got a bunch of players in that locker room that are extremely professional. I think Kevin Durant proved that with his very enthusiastic kind of endorsement of Billy Donovan. But we'll see how it goes, man. Because here's the thing: they may go out there and win 57 games and win the division crown and go to the playoffs and get knocked out in the second round because the execution isn't quite on the same level as some of the better teams in the West. And Durant may leave anyway. It's like Billy didn't do anything wrong, but he didn't do anything right enough to make me think about staying.
By the way, I just thought about this, and hopefully I still have the sideline gig next year. You never know what's going to happen. But I want to do as many Oklahoma City games.
Oh, no. No.
Listen, if anybody's going to give me good answers on the sidelines, it's going to be Billy Donovan. The other thing I'll say about this, Billy, if you're listening, listen. If it doesn't work out, come on back. I don't care who we have in place. Just come on back. Don't go to some rival like
Florida State. He's going to go to Florida State or Miami.
No, he's not going to Florida State. Those two are garbage programs. Don't tell anybody I said that.
Hate hard.
I'm kidding. Those are great coaches. I love them, especially Coach L down here in Miami. But just come on back, Billy. Don't worry about it. Just
by the way,
back, open arms.
Is it Tim Corrigan that does the
yes?
Schedule? Tim, don't let him do it. Tim, I want him. I want him anywhere but doing Oklahoma City games.
Tim, you want good TV? You want me on those Thunder games? All right, enough about Billy Donovan. We're going to hear plenty of him as the year and next season comes along. But we're going to close this out talking about our man, our dude, Chad Shanks, former Houston Rockets social media manager. He got fired, as we know, and you guys touched upon this on the podcast yesterday. But, Amin, you've got a little message for Mr. Shanks?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done one of these, so this is an open letter to Chad J. Shanks. Former Houston Rockets social media manager, got fired for tweeting out suggestive emojis, I guess you would call it. Chad, a lot of people have come down upon you in the last couple of days, saying that you're classless. One guy actually called you slime at the end. Don't listen to those people, Chad. Hate hard is like the midichlorian in the Star Wars movies. It's in your blood. If you got a lot of it, you can be a Jedi. Me, myself, I'm like Anakin Skywalker of this. The highest levels ever. But I can also recognize that the Force is strong in you. The hate hard is strong in you. I want you to continue to cultivate that. Don't settle. Don't turn into one of these neutered, eunuch accounts that kind of just give us play-by-play like, great shot by Kyrie. What a play by Blake. No. I want you to go for the jugular. And when a team is facing elimination, you let them know. They got eliminated. And we did it. Look at my face. I did this to you. Keep that flame burning brightly, sir. As you embark on your weekend, tweeting for Le Batard, understand that he's kind of like a Yoda of hate hard. He doesn't have as high of a midichlorian level as I do, Anakin Skywalker, but he's still up there. Learn from that man. He knows how to troll, unlike any other. Who knows? If all works out, maybe we can get Le Batard to chip in. We'll put a billboard up in the city of Houston with an emoji of a horse, emoji of a gun, and your face as an emoji. Thank you, Chad. Sincerely yours, Amin Elhassan. Dictated but not read.
I would love to see that billboard.
Oh my gosh!
By the way, I
wish.
I think you just offered up, or you should offer up he can have this hashtag, Chad can. Hashtag hate horse hard.
Hate horse hard? Oh, I think we know what we're tweeting today when the podcast drops.
Hate horse hard. Also, I thought it was, I wonder, and, he was on Le Batard's show. I don't know, I didn't listen, I don't know if this was asked, but I wonder if he's still a Rockets fan. Because let's just say he's a diehard Rockets fan, right? And he's in there, he's got his job, he's like, all right, this is awesome, I'm going to tweet some funny stuff, I'm going to, put this out there, and this is going to be great, and Mavs fans are going to hate it. What? I lost my job? And then all of a sudden, does that make him not want to be a fan anymore? Like that, if it was me, I'd have a hard time cheering for this franchise that just took my income.
You know what I want to know? And this is inside joke 101 right here. I want to know if he's a UGK fan. We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave that at
that.
The
people in the know what that joke is about right there.
If you didn't have a chance, just go find anywhere on the internet that has Steve Ballmer's reaction when the Clippers are up by 3 with 21 seconds left. This man looks like he is in a horror movie and was possessed. The demon has left him and is threatening to come back into him. That's exactly what he looks like in these photos. It's amazing. One of
the SportsCenter producers said he looks like he looks like a 14-year-old girl at a One Direction concert when one of them just made eye contact with her. Not even a point.
Yeah, I mean,
just
to me,
eye
it's
contact.
not so much. It looks like fear more than excitement. Like I think he's deathly afraid of somebody is just literally going to take his heart, and he's covering it up with both his elbows.
I don't know. I look at it, and I remember all those Michael Jackson, like, when he goes on tour in Russia, and, like, people, like, and he waves, like, oh, no! Like, that's what it looked like right there.
It's too funny. It's too funny. But anyway, on that image, that's going to wrap up this edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast. For Amin Elhassan, I'm Israel Gutierrez. Thanks for listening this week, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the Pod Center page on ESPNradio.com.